Okay guys, so it was a successful night. Last night I slept really well. I actually slept longer than what I wanted to. It is right now it is 8:30. So whenever it gets daylight, this white wall tint really lights it up in here. It's kind of nice. So I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to cook some breakfast and get started with the day. I know my younger brother wants to come stay here with me tonight, so he'll be out here later on this evening, so that'll be fun. Yeah, I've got the fire stoked up. I probably had to get up once every couple hours to stoke the fire last night. That's about it though. I've got, of course, my Pathfinder blanket and then my hammock gear over quilt. So I think what we're going to eat this morning is we're going to make some cornmeal mush, because we can also save some for later and fry it up. So I think that's what we're going to do though. I've got my food bucket right here, so we'll go ahead and get cooking. My lens keeps fogging up on me, so kind of bear with me here. So we can open up this food bucket. You guys can kind of see what I've got in here. I've got some yellow cornmeal. They didn't have it in the big bags, they just had it in little containers like this, so I got 2 of them. I've got some brown sugar that I just brought from the house. That's what we're going to use this morning for breakfast. Okay, so in order to make this recipe, it's pretty simple. So you just want regular cornmeal. I've got yellow cornmeal. Open this thing up. I'm going to save some of this for later, just so we can make fried cornmeal mush. So just kind of dump some in there. That's quite a bit. Then you want twice as much water than there is cornmeal. Just go ahead and add your water. Looks about good right there. Kind of get it mixed in a little bit. You can see it's kind of runny, but what's going to happen is as this heats up, it's going to thicken up some. So just heat it up, put it on top of the stove. Okay, so as this stuff heats up, you need to kind of constantly stir it. You don't want this stuff getting burnt. Just kind of let it sit for a minute. And if we think we have too much water in there, that's okay. We can always add more cornmeal. So you can kind of see how this is starting to thicken up some now. Now I'm going to have, this is basically a hot cereal, okay? And you flavor it with brown sugar or honey. I'm going to scoop a helping off that I want to eat now. What I'll do is I'll let this cook a little bit longer, let it get a little bit thicker, and then I'll take this pan and set it outside. It's currently about 25 degrees outside, and so it's going to harden up. After that, I'll be able to store it in some type of cloth or bandana, or if I have any type of butcher's paper, I can do it that way, and come back later, cut it into slices and fry it up. And it's basically like a corn fritter. But you see how that thickened up like that? That's exactly what we're looking for. Like I said, it's basically a hot cereal. So like I said, it's basically a hot cereal. You can see how it really thickened up. I've actually probably could have used a little bit more water, but we'll take a little bit of brown sugar here, dump on it to your tasting. Whoa, it's probably a little too much right there. Mix her in, and then we have breakfast. Alrighty, so we've got our brown sugar mixed into our cornmeal mush, and go in for the taste test. That's good. It was just the right amount of brown sugar too. I thought it was a little much, but looks like I got a dog hair in there, probably from Willie Man. Good breakfast meal. That's going to stay with you for a while. So then, you know, this with a hot cup of, with a nice cup of hot chocolate. Sorry, my brain's kind of not working. I've got a container of hot chocolate in here. I'm just not in the mood for it right now. Cornmeal is a sundry you can carry that has a ton of uses. You can use it as a thickener in soups and, you know, different recipes. You know, people along the frontier typically carried some type of cornmeal. I kind of want to read you guys something that I found online. There was this pioneer named Joel Palmer. All right, he made his first trip out west in 1845. This was on the Oregon Trail. He wrote a book called Journal of Travels Over the Rocky Mountains. And in that book, there's a list of sundries that people took. Sundries were more commonly used back then. Groceries were a little bit more fancy. It was more like an import-export thing, right? If you got groceries, you were really living high on the hog, but most people had sundries. And this list is for one adult. This is per person, whoever you're traveling with. 200 pounds of flour, 30 pounds of pilot bread, 75 pounds of bacon, 10 pounds of rice, 5 pounds of coffee, 2 pounds of tea, 25 pounds of sugar, half a bushel of dried beans, 1 bushel of dried fruit, 10 pounds of salt, half a bushel of cornmeal, and it is well to have half a bushel of corn parched and ground. A small keg of vinegar should also be taken. This is what he recommends for each person to take, 200 pounds of flour. So if you get 4 people, you know, and you have 2 or 3 carts, you know, each one of those carts has hundreds of pounds of just food. So that really shows you that, you know, they did take a lot of stuff with them whenever they were traveling across country on the Oregon Trail. But like I said, they needed to have it. So that's kind of my thought in this wall tent. I kind of wanted to read, I was reading this last night and I wanted to read it to you guys and share it with you all. And it also talks about, you know, different types of flour and things like that down beneath it. I was doing a little bit of research on that. It talks about different types of breads that they, you know, made and carried. Talks about yeast, things like that. So I just thought that was really interesting, and I figured I'd share it with you guys because it shows you just how much stuff they actually took with them. And, you know, I don't have a whole lot of stuff in this wall tent. You know, everything in this wall tent probably weighs 400 pounds, maybe. The wall tent itself weighs 100. The Blue Eddy weighs about 60 to 70, and then, you know, the rest of the gear after that. Maybe not even that much. But, you know, whenever they had those wagons loaded down like that, you know, if they would, you know, snapped a wagon wheel or something like that, that put a hurting on them, because now they're kind of stuck, and they don't, you know, you just don't leave all of your supplies there. So it's one of those things where you have to fix the wagon wheel, or you just load all the stuff onto another wagon and keep going. So I thought that was a really cool little bit of information. I figured I'd read it to you guys. That way, you know, you guys can kind of understand how much food and stuff they actually took with them whenever they were traveling cross country on the frontier. Okay guys, so we went ahead and we ate our breakfast. I'm letting the rest of the mush set up outside so I can store it for later. Maybe fry it tonight with dinner. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and head out on a little squirrel hunt, see if I can get a couple squirrels maybe for dinner tonight or breakfast in the morning. So I figured what I do is I bring it down here to the bunk, kind of show you guys what I'm going to take with me, and we'll get out there and start hunting. So for the gun that I'm going to be using for this hunt, it's going to be my single shot 12 gauge. I've got 3 shells here. These are all 5-shot. I've got a couple small pieces of paracord to hang the squirrels, if I do get any, from the haversack or my belt. Ferro rod, compass, bandana. I like to carry water with me, so I have my canteen carrier. And then I'm going to be wearing my oilskin watch coat for an outer layer. Makes a good windbreaker. It's pretty windy up here today, so I will be wearing that to kind of break up the wind. So this is what all we're going to take with us today on our squirrel hunt. So we're getting ready to head out and see if we can get a couple squirrels. It's pretty chilly out here today. It's about 28 degrees and it's kind of windy. So hopefully we end up seeing something. Typically squirrels don't move much whenever it's really windy. So it's going to be dicey whether or not we actually get something. But this oilskin watch coat, man, it really cuts the wind. I'm glad that I'm glad I've got this thing, because wool doesn't cut the wind. You need a windbreaker with wool, so with this over top of it, works really well. We got a nest right in front of me, right at my 12 o'clock. I've got one over there behind the camera. Two I see, kind of a mix of poplar and hardwoods right here in this area. So we'll just have to wait and see if we see anything. Guys, I moved places. I sat at that other place for probably about an hour, and I've been sitting here for probably about 20 or 30 minutes. And I'm not seeing anything. Nothing is moving. Which sucks, because that means no meat for tonight. But that's all right. There's always tomorrow. I would hunt longer, but I've got a couple projects that I've got to get done. So we're just gonna have to suck it up and deal with it, and that's a reality. That's why they call it hunting, not killing. That is why the pioneers always carried, some sort of supplemental meat sources. That way, if they didn't get game, they would have something to eat. A lot of people think they just went out there with nothing, and that's just not the case. They always carry food with them. So, like I said, I'm not seeing anything. Back to the wall tent.